My friend Esau and I have been friends since school. We played sports together. Neither of us got a scholarship, so we didn't go to college. Both got jobs at a local factory. Esau left and joined the army. He spent 4 years in the service and, upon returning, brought home a bride and one child. He has since had a second child. We both seemed happy and remained good friends, although not necessarily best friends. We hung out in different companies. I thought he was hanging out with the wrong people. I was that guy drinking beer at the local pub after work. There was nothing special about me that made me stand out from the crowd. I am a white male, 32 years old, already divorced, fortunately without children. I was not a big careerist like my ex-wife wanted. I was happy with what I had been given and just wanted to lead a normal life. Go to work, do your job, go to the pub and watch sports. Of course, I did other things too. I wasn't lazy, I just wasn't particularly motivated. Margaret, my ex-wife, wanted more. She watched too much TV and wanted everything she saw. I told her that we don't have that kind of money, and if she wants to buy all new clothes and travel, she should get off her fat ass and get a job. Well, she did just that. She got a job as a cashier at a local Target store and made some money. Of course, she spent every penny on clothes, shoes, and God knows what else. What was funny, maybe funny, is not the right word, was that our sex life was great. I think she watched all those soap operas and wanted me to be the same. Hey, I tried my best. What led to the divorce was that one day, returning from the pub, after listening to all this sexy talk from the guys, I wanted to have sex. At first she resisted, but when she agreed, I saw all the signs that she had sex with someone else today. She realized that I suspected something and started crying. I knew she had recently slept with someone else. Told her to just get out. Come back and enjoy your lover. She wanted to explain herself, but I said that unless he forced her or manipulated her in some way, I didn't want to listen to it. She said she did it voluntarily, but it was a mistake. I agreed that it was a mistake, and it would cost her everything. She had a week to remove all her personal belongings from my house. I wasn't going to give her anything more. Damn it, we didn't have much anyway. We lived in a big house that belonged to my grandmother, and she gave it to me. It was a few miles out of town, but since it was given to me, I couldn't complain. It was worth driving the extra few miles to work. I liked living outside the city. Margaret left and moved in with one of the other divorced cashiers. I contacted a lawyer and filed for divorce. I really missed her. We had a lot of good times until I stopped pleasing her. My friend Esau said that I walk around angry at the world, and I need to get rid of it, or it will drive me crazy. He was right. I needed revenge on the bastard who ruined my marriage. I know it was Margaret's fault, but she didn't do it alone. I couldn't let the guy get away without retribution. I found out it was one of the assistant managers at her store. He was married and had a child. What the heck? I didn't understand why he was trying to get to my wife. I went to Target and found out who the bastard was. I approached him and told him who I was. He said he would call the police if I started trouble. I gave him a choice. He said to go outside and we would sort it out like men, or I would just go to his house and tell his wife about his infidelity. He said that he was not an animal and would not fight with me. Besides, his wife will trust him more than me. I told him he was a complete asshole and his wife deserved much better. He replied that it was none of my business what he said to his wife. I told him he was a worthless cheater, and if I saw him outside the store, I would get back at him for ruining my marriage. When he finished confessing to having sex with my ex, he turned around and his wife was standing there. I picked it up before coming to the store. She didn't want to believe it until she heard it from her husband. She called him every name she could when we left the store. He didn't come out, knowing that I would have beaten him to a pulp. I took his wife home, and she filed for divorce. I did not take advantage of her situation, despite the fact that she was in serious condition. She had enough problems. Such a good woman married such an idiot. Last I heard, she left him with nothing. I felt good after that. I felt sorry for his wife, but she was much better off without her cheater. From then on, my life went on as usual until one day Esau came to my home. I was completely surprised to see it in my home. Most people didn't even know where I lived. Esau was black. He was a really nice guy, but as I mentioned, he hung out with the wrong people. His so-called friends got him involved in the trade of illegal substances, and he became a collector of them. His job was to make sure customers paid. He got into big trouble. At one of the fundraisers, the buyer did not have the required amount. Esau said that during the fight, he killed the man. He told me that he would be found soon. He is identified by the one he beat. It was an accident, but if you're a debt collector, the police won't look at it that way. He was sure that prison awaited him. I asked what he wanted from me. If I cover him up, I become an accomplice. He said he wanted a special favor from me. He said he always knew he could trust me. Esau, what do you want from me? Jake, I want you to take care of my wife and children. What? I've never even met them, and God, I don't know, Esau. I need time to think. Jake, my wife knows about the shooting. I called her before I came here. I can't go home. Kai, my wife, said that the police were already at our place, looking for me. I do not have much time. I need to know that my wife and children will be safe. I have no one else to turn to. Please at least talk to her. I'm afraid people will stalk her if they find out she's alone. I really screwed up, Jake. You must help my family. My God, what should I do? His wife and now 2 children that he wants me to take custody of. I don't even know them, and he wants me to take care of them. Damn, why me? I just wanted to lead a quiet life, and now I might be pulled into something I have no idea about. I felt like I was getting into some serious problems. I looked at my old friend and saw that he was crying. I've never seen him show such emotion before. He really found himself in serious trouble. Why should I interfere? I needed time to think, but I didn't have it. My friend needed my help now. All I could think about was how to help a friend who was probably going to jail. I told him to call his wife and ask her to pack things for himself and the kids. I'll go and pick them up to bring them to my place. I had an old house with enough rooms. I told him to stay at my house and not answer the door or answer the phone. Esau decided that it would be better to surrender to the authorities. Maybe he can plead self-defense or some other lesser crime. He knew he would be caught the next day. He had nowhere to go, no one else to turn to. I headed towards his house and looked around to make sure no one was watching us. I pulled up to their trailer, which was parked about a half-mile down a rural road. Kai, whom I had never met, ran out with her youngest daughter in her arms, and the eldest followed. I ran to the porch and took 4 suitcases and put them in the trunk. Everyone got into the car, Kai and the youngest daughter in the back seat, and the eldest in the front with me. We drove down the back road with our headlights off. We saw cars approaching the trailer. I was glad that I made it to the highway undetected. We went to my house. When we pulled up to my house, I told Kai to take the kids inside while I took care of the suitcases. Well, I thought Esau couldn't stay with us, otherwise I would have been accused of harboring a criminal. Kai went inside, Esau talked to her for a few minutes, and then went over to kiss his daughters. He didn't know it then, but that was the last time he would be able to kiss them. He said goodbye and told me to take care of his family. I promised him to do my best. We all cried when he left to surrender to the authorities. Before we continue, here's some information about Kai and her daughters. Kai is Asian. She is from Taiwan. She met Esau there, and they married. She explained this to me later, but I thought it would be better to paste the information here so you can better understand the situation. Many people want to move to the U.S., and marriage is one of the ways to get here. She said she had great respect for Esau. He was a good man and did everything for her and her children. She said he was the father of both girls, Tia, the eldest, 9 years old, born in Taiwan, and Mia, who is 4, was born here, making her a U.S. citizen. Chai respected Esau greatly and never did anything to disrespect him. She was raised that way in her homeland. She knew that he was involved in illegal activities, but it would be wrong to tell him about it, since he is the head of the family and his word is law. She tried to learn the customs of this country and raise her children accordingly. She now regrets not talking to Esau about his illegal activities. Perhaps she could have convinced him to stop. But it was too late. Kai was a beautiful woman. There are no words to describe her better. She was short, less than 5 feet, maybe about 4 feet 10 or 11 inches. She weighed no more than 100 pounds, but was perfectly proportioned, very petite. She was 28, but could pass for 20. A very beautiful woman. I understand why Esau married her. I myself wouldn't mind coming home to such a woman. Tia was a beautiful young girl at 9 years old. She was of mixed Asian and African American blood, like her sister. She will become an attractive lady when she grows up. She is smart and does well in school and speaks both languages. She is also very respectful, just like her mother. She told me that she misses her dad and loves him very much. She was a daughter he could be proud of. She was glad that he chose me to take care of them. Small Mia was a typical 4-year-old. Gorgeous, big, beautiful brown eyes that will make your heart flutter just by looking at them. She spent most of her time following her older sister. Her sister took great care of her, playing with her and hanging out with her. I understood why Esau wanted them to be looked after. This was a wonderful family. The shooting was on the news and in the newspapers. They said the man surrendered to authorities. We knew it was Esau. The next day, I took Kai back to their trailer to pick up additional belongings and personal items. The trailer was completely destroyed. It looked like it had been torn apart by a tornado. The cushions on the sofa were cut up, as were the mattresses. I told Kai that we needed to get out of there as soon as possible. Something was definitely wrong. She grabbed a few things, and we headed back to my house. The next day, the newspaper wrote that Esau was charged with first-degree murder. Bail was set at $1 million. Even to get bail, he would need $100,000. He wasn't going anywhere. Damn it, his fortune and mine combined wouldn't be enough for bail. Kai was very sad, but she said that Esau told her that she would probably never see him again. The next day, I went to the prison to visit him. When he saw that it was me, he got angry with me. Said, "What the hell are you doing here? You must protect my family. Now you will probably be followed. Whatever you do, don't go straight home and never come back here again." I didn't understand what he was talking about. I told him that I thought he was my friend and came to see him. He said quietly so that no one else could hear, "Get out of here now and never come back. I trust you with the most valuable thing I have, my family. Please take care of them." "How long should I take care of them, Esau?" "Always," he answered. "Now get out of here and don't let anyone follow you home." I stood up, but was puzzled. When I walked out into the parking lot, 2 men stopped me. They asked why I had come to see Esau. I told them he was an old friend I worked with, so I went to see him. Told them this was not the Esau I knew and would not return. They just looked at me as I got into the car. I had no idea what it all meant or what I was getting myself into. I knew I couldn't go home, so I headed to the local pub. I realized that I was being followed, so I needed to do something to remove suspicion from myself. I went into the pub and said that Esau was in prison and wanted to say goodbye to his old friends. Many of those who were in the pub knew Esau and decided to visit him. It was good for me. How many people could be followed and suspicion would fall from me? I went to my parents, who lived in the opposite direction from my house. Told them that Esau had been arrested and about the shooting. He asked if I could spend a few days with them. I told my parents the truth that I was looking after Kai and her daughters. For some reason, Esau thought they were in danger. My parents are wonderful people and thought it was a good thing on my part. I called home and told Kai that I wouldn't be coming home. I told her not to answer the phone. If I called her, I would let the phone ring twice and then call back immediately. She understood and agreed to go with me. I looked out my parents' front door to find that I was being followed. My dad and I had the same name, so if anyone had checked the records, they would have thought I lived there. For the next 4 days, I walked to and from work from my parents' house. After the 3rd day, I was no longer followed. I told my parents that I would talk to them later and headed home. Of course, they told me to be careful. Kai and her daughters greeted me as if I were their long-lost friend. Kai mentioned that no one called except me. That was nice to hear. We had no further contact with Esau. Then we knew he was alone. The news reports never mentioned his wife or children, but said that in addition to murder, it may have been a drug deal gone bad. It was difficult to get any information without raising any red flags or telling anyone about Kai and the children living with me. In the pub, I learned that the merchants thought Esau had stolen their money. We found out that they were the ones who searched the trailer. They actually came back and did it again, and then burned it to the ground. This was actually good news for Kai and her children. This left less room for tracking their search. Eventually, like most news, it was removed from the front pages, and from time to time in sections of the newspaper appeared articles. One article we came across was about stolen money. We read that the merchants, thinking that Esau might have stolen the money, were looking for various people who might have been involved in the robbery. They could not get any information from Esau since he was in prison. Besides, if he had money, he could post bail. Why should he stay in prison if he has the opportunity to get out, even if only for a short time before trial? My life at home has completely changed. It was only 2 weeks after Esau surrendered that his family became my family. Tia, I missed my dad, so I guess I took his place. I talked to her, she loved going to the library, and I took her there. There, she started using computers and taught me about Taiwan, the people, and their culture. I introduced her to McDonald's and pizza. I never went into the pub again. I stopped for a few beers to keep up appearances, but I really wanted to get home to my new family. I couldn't understand it. I was never a big fan of children because I was never around them and was an only child, but I began to love these children. Every day when I came home, I met little Mia. I would go into the house, and she would call me Dad. The first couple of times it bothered Tia, and she said, "It's not Dad, it's Uncle Jake." Then Mia grabbed my legs. She wanted me to hold her, which I always did, and she kissed me. Kai never missed what was happening. We started doing things as a family at home or outside together. The children really enjoyed playing outside. I had some money and wanted to buy some things for the children to play with. They lost most of their toys and games in a trailer fire. We all went shopping like a real family. We entered a big city where we almost blended in with it. A white man, an Asian woman, and 2 mixed-blood children. An ordinary family in a big city. It was quite strange to see Tia and her mom choosing toys and games. Almost everything was educational in nature. I walked over to the stuffed animals with Mia and let her pick out what she wanted. When we returned and Tia saw Mia's stuffed animal, she oohed and awed. I told her to find one for herself. She came back with one, walked up to me, kissed me on the cheek and said, "Thank you, Jake. Never in my life have I had so much fun shopping. I wish I had the money to buy my new family the entire store." I noticed that Kai never bought anything for herself. I told her to please buy herself something. She picked out a pair of shoes and an outfit. I walked up to a lingerie store, picked up a real sexy red pajama set, jokingly held it up and said, "How about this? I bet you'll look amazing in this." She laughed with me and then looked me deep in the eyes and asked if they had it in a small size. She went to the counter, found it, and put it in our cart. I didn't know what to think. I know I've only known her for a short time, but there was something about her that was different from other women I've known. When we got home, everyone looked so happy. I truly felt like this was my family. The kids respected me, and I think Kai did too. Every day when I came home, she had already prepared dinner. I never asked her to cook for me, but food was always there. I told her that she was not a cook or a maid. I didn't expect her to clean up after me. I wanted her to be my friend, not my housekeeper. Kai told me she likes a clean house, and she likes cooking for me, plus she still has to cook for the kids. She said that she really likes and respects me. She kept quiet about everything that happened since Esau was captured, because she knew that I didn't need to help them, and at first she was afraid that I wouldn't help them. She was afraid for her daughters until she saw what a good person I was. I told her that Esau would probably never come back, that he would go to prison, and that she was stuck here with me for now, but could leave any time she wanted. I wouldn't hold her against her will because of a promise I made to her husband. Kai told me that she was a somewhat quiet person, but she was also a very strong-willed person. She has been through a lot in her life. She also knew what she wanted and how to behave. She told me not to be fooled by her quiet and shy nature. She was still with me because she liked me, and so did her daughters. She was worried at first, as she said, because she also needed time to make decisions and did not have the luxury of getting her affairs in order. Now that she had time to think it over, she wanted to stay with me. She came out and said, "Soon you will love me," smiling. Believe me, I had no doubt that she was right. I was already starting to fall in love with her. Later that night, as I lay in bed, I heard Kai put her children to bed. I wondered how this would all turn out. It was like a dream. I couldn't even imagine a story with so much tension, but it was real life, and it affected real people. A good childhood friend was probably going to jail for murder. His wife, whom I had only known for a few weeks, lived with me along with her daughters. I knew I wanted this woman, but not by force, or because she felt she owed me anything. I wanted her because of the person she seemed to be on the inside. A warm, beautiful, loving woman who had needs that I could meet. Yes, I fell in love with my old friend's wife. There was a knock on my bedroom door, and then it opened and Kai walked in wearing only the negligee I bought for her. She came up to me and said, "Jake, will you do me a favor?" I know Esau would approve. He told me before he left that he understood that I would have physical needs, and that if you wanted, I could give myself to you. This is not cheating on him. We both know he will never come back, and I want you to fill that void in my life now. I pulled the covers aside, and she slid into my bed. I didn't say anything, just leaned over and kissed her lightly. We must have fallen asleep. When I woke up, it was time to get up for work, and she was no longer in bed. I went to the bathroom to wash my face and get ready for work. When I got out of the shower, she was already in the kitchen, making coffee and preparing a light breakfast. When I entered the kitchen, she came up to me and kissed me. She thanked me for last night and said she really needed it. She said maybe we could do it again tonight and go a little further. During work, the bosses came with alarming news. Esau was found dead in his cell. It was not clear whether this was a homicide. It was on the news all day. When I returned home, Kai had tears in her eyes. She heard about it on the news. She cried on my shoulder and asked me to never leave her because I was all she had left, and she and the girls needed me. I told her that there is no chance that I will ever leave her now. We didn't tell Tia. She knew that her father would be sentenced to life in prison and accepted it. So if she didn't bring it up, we didn't see the point in bringing it up at that point. We didn't make love that night as we had planned. We just lay there and hugged. It was what we both needed at that moment. The rest of the week went pretty normally. We decided to take the children to the zoo on Saturday. We were going to start acting even more like a family. We didn't have to pretend. At that moment, we were already a family. When I got home from work on Monday, Kai was cleaning my bedroom. I told her it wasn't necessary. We already talked about this, and she was not my maid. She looked at me and said that if she was going to make love to me regularly, which she had every intention of doing, then she wanted clean sheets and a nice smelling room. I laughed because she was right. I had been single for so long that I never realized how unkempt my place was. She opened my closet to hang it somehow her clothes when she suddenly froze in place. She called me. I asked what was the matter. She asked if it was mine khaki coat in the closet. I looked at him and said no. Thought she might have put it there. Then she said that this was the first time she had looked in my closet and that Esau had a coat just like it. The thought of him at that moment sent a chill down her spine. He had this coat on the day he left home, but she doesn't remember him wearing it the last time she said goodbye to him, the day he turned himself in to the authorities. I took my coat out of the closet and off the hanger. I checked all the pockets and found only a folded piece of paper. It said, "Jake, remember where we had sex with our first cheerleaders? That's all." I looked at Kai and told her that I didn't understand why he wrote me that note. It's hard to believe that the last thing he would say to any of us would be that note. I checked all the pockets of his coat again, but found nothing else. What is the meaning of this note? I read it again. What is he trying to tell me? Does this even matter? I folded the note and hung my coat back in the closet. I sat down on the sofa and continued to think about the meaning of this note. Kai came up and sat next to her, asking if this really happened. Did we have sex with him? Cheerleaders in a special place? I looked at Kai and said that he and I actually did this once after a big game and brought them under the stands on the football field, but that was years ago. Kai said we need to go there. She knew Esau well enough to understand that the message was very important. I called my mom and asked if they would mind looking after the kids for a while. Of course, she happily agreed. We took Tia and Mia to my parents. These were the only people we trusted at that moment. They were so happy to see the children. I was an only child, and they thought they would never have grandchildren. They looked at Kai and me, and then ate for the children. Now there was hope for them. I could read it on their faces. Kai and I headed to the school football field. Kai was small enough to squeeze through the gate, but I had to climb over the fence. We felt like a couple of children breaking into the stadium. I got caught on the fence and tore my pants. Kai couldn't stop laughing. We walked under the bleachers, and there were 100 yards of bleachers on both sides of the field. We had no idea what we were looking for. Kai asked me where exactly we had sex with the cheerleaders. I took her to where I had sex with a cheerleader about 14 years ago. Nothing looked out of the ordinary. I told Kai it was probably a waste of time. She asked me where Esau took his girlfriend that day. I pointed to the place where I remembered him being. A black arrow was painted on the frame of the stand, pointing down towards the ground. I knelt down and began to dig into the ground. The dirt was loose, not compacted like the ground around her. I dug down about half a foot and found a plastic bag. It contained 2 keys and a note. I read the note. Jake, if you found this bag, then I'm either in prison for life or dead. I hope you keep your promise and take care of my family. If you've already made love to Kai, you know why I married her. There is no more loving and sexy woman on this planet. I know she never loved me, but I also know that she respected me, and that was all I could ever ask for. She was ready to become the mother of my children if I brought her to the USA. These keys come from the lockers at the station. I know you heard that money was stolen and drug dealers were wondering who stole it. It was me. I saved it for my family. I was hoping to end this lifestyle and leave using this money for our future. Kai had no idea this money existed. Make sure she gets the most of that money and uses it wisely. Whatever you do, don't show it off. They would still keep an eye on the big purchases of people I knew. There's over $200,000 in those lockers. Money is not tracked. Tell Kai to use this wisely for our children's future. Once again, Jake, thank you for taking care of my family. Your friend, Esau. Wow, what the hell do I do now? Kai read the letter and asked me the same question. I told her that the first thing we need to do is go to the station and pick up these bags. We left the stadium and went to the station. I kept wondering why Esau tried so hard to hide this money. It was then that I realized that if anyone else had received this note, it would have meant nothing to them. It's impossible for anyone to know about our life in high school, and certainly not to know about cheerleading groups. If he were still alive, this letter wouldn't mean much either. If I found him, I would probably just laugh and go to him. We took different routes to the station to make sure we weren't being followed. We parked as close to the station entrance as possible. If we had bags to carry, we wouldn't want to walk any further than necessary. Approaching the lockers, we looked around one last time. I opened the locker and took out 2 small suitcases. We then opened the second cabinet and took out 2 more. We carried our suitcases to the car as quickly as possible. We put them in the trunk and I was shaking. Nothing like this has ever happened to me before. We drove along the road to the restaurant. I had to calm down. Kai came in and brought us each coffee in the car. We just sat in silence and drank coffee. When my breathing returned to normal, I told Kai that I was a complete mess. I was nervous as hell and didn't know what to do. She suggested calling my mom and dad and asking if they could keep the kids overnight, and maybe we could go to a motel and check the bags. Perhaps this is better than throwing money all over the house. If only it were really money. We haven't examined the suitcases yet. The mother said she wanted to leave the children overnight and asked if everything was okay. I told her that everything was fine and that we would come pick up the children the next day. My mom had to tell me how great these two kids are and how smart Tia is. Kai wanted to talk to Tia and let her know that we will be there tomorrow. When Tia called, she told my mom what wonderful people my parents were. She even called them grandparents. We said our goodbyes and headed to the motel on the highway. We began to worry that we were being followed, although there was no reason to think so. I think when you have that much money, you become paranoid. We checked into the motel and opened our suitcases. We started counting the money and putting it in $1,000 piles. When we finished counting, there were over $275,000 in unmarked and untraceable bills, with the largest denomination being 100 down to the ones. At that moment, we were both ecstatic with joy. The whole bed was littered with money. I told Kai to undress and get on the bed. I wanted to make love to her, despite all this money. She smiled as she began to undress. Believe me, there is nothing sexier than seeing a sexy woman lying on a bed covered in money. After cleaning ourselves up and taking a shower, we collected the money, put it in our suitcases, and went back to bed. We finally have time to think. We talked about money and what alternatives we could use. One thing was for sure, we were going to keep the money. The only question was how we were going to use or spend it. Kai said money wasn't a big deal to her. Of course, she wanted a good life, but not at the expense of her children. She wanted them to have the American dream, the dream of freedom of choice that came with America. Kai thought for a moment and then told me that she came to America for the American dream. Freedom, a place where you have so many wonderful options to choose from. Education is of your choice, not imposed on you. Her children will be able to choose their own future and become the best they can be. She said she knew violence existed in America, but violence was everywhere. At least in America, she felt more protected than in her homeland. She and her children had the freedom to be single or married. It will be their choice. Marriage was not chosen for them. She smiled at me and said that America offers so much more that the people of this country don't understand because it was given to them. I looked at her and began to understand. She would do anything to move to America. She wanted her children to grow up in a free society and have all the choices America had to offer. That's why she married Esau. She respected him and was faithful to him until he told her that she could have this freedom. I told her I was going to give her that freedom too. We could open several accounts at different savings institutions, and she and her family could strive for the American dream. She could live with me until she can sort out her affairs. She looked at me without saying a word. We went to pick up the girls. They told us they had a wonderful time with their grandparents. They asked if we could visit them more often. Of course, I replied that we'll see, and we went home. I buried the suitcases in different parts of the yard. We had 9 acres of land and many places to choose from. Only Kai and I knew where they were buried. We wanted to take the time to make the right decisions. Kai studied her documents and was a little concerned about her citizenship. She and Tia were here because of their marriage to Esau. They were not us citizens. Mia, on the other hand, was a citizen, having been born here. Kai said her paperwork needs to be updated and she doesn't know what to do. I said we could go to the next county and contact a lawyer to see what needed to be done. I asked Mom and Dad if they could watch the kids while we went away for a day or two to sort out the paperwork. Mom happily agreed, and the children were happy. I contacted the lawyer who handled my divorce case several years ago. He seemed like a normal guy and knew his stuff. Kai and I walked into the lawyer's office, and I tried to explain the situation. I told him that Kai's husband had passed away and her paperwork needed to be updated. He reviewed Kai and Tia's documents and said he needed to contact immigration for the latest updates as laws change frequently. He asked us to come back the next day and he would have the answers. As we were leaving, he looked at me and said, Jake, if you marry her, there won't be any problems. And he smiled. Kai and I went to dinner and discussed finances since we now had a lot of money. Kai asked me what the lawyer said. Will I marry her so she can stay in the country? I knew she was worried about it. I looked at her and there were tears in my eyes. Kai, the answer to your question is yes. I'll marry you, not only so you can stay in the country, but also because you told me something important. I will learn to love you, and I did and am doing it. I have never felt such strong feelings and emotions for any woman. I see in you everything Esau saw and more. Yes, if the only way you can stay here is to marry me, then you have nothing to worry about. Kai was crying. Jake, you don't understand. I fell in love too. I respected Esau, and he was a good man, but I fell in love with you. I don't want to be without you. Money, no money, I don't care. I want you, Jake. I love you, and my children love you. We are becoming such a good family. You see, Jake, I respect you, I care about you, I trust you, but most of all, I love you. We left the restaurant and went to the motel. Jake, make love to me and give me your baby. I want your baby, Jake. I want us to capture our love for each other tonight. I understand. I realized that this was her way of showing me her love. This will forever remain in my memory. The next day, we went back to the lawyer, and he said that according to the latest laws, Kai and Tia can live in the United States. Their visas will need to be renewed every 2 years. Kai smiled and told the lawyer that was great, but she was going to take his other advice and marry me. She asked him if he could get Esau's death certificate so we could get a marriage certificate. She didn't want to give away too much information, so she told the lawyer that she and Esau had been separated for over a year when she learned of his arrest. My lawyer friend said he would get the death certificate for us and just mail it to us. There was no need to go back. Life was getting better. We went back to Mom and Dad and sat everyone down in the living room as a family. I held Mia in my lap, which seemed to be her favorite place. Tia sat next to her mother, and everyone wanted to know what kind of meeting this was. I started by explaining that the visas were in order and Kai and the children could live wherever they wanted. Tia looked at me with tears in her eyes and said, Jake, I want to live with you. I smiled at her and told her that her mom had something to ask her. She turned to her mom and Kai said, Tia, Jake asked me to marry him. I told him yes, but it depends on how you and Mia feel about it. I know what Mia's answer will be just by looking at her, but what do you say, Tia? Do you want me to marry Jake? Tia jumped up and hugged her mother. Mom, I don't want anything more. Does this mean Jake will be our father? Kai replied, Well, it depends. I interrupted Kai and finished my sentence. Tia, if you want me to be your father, I will file the adoption papers for you and Mia. This will make me your father, and you will have grandparents. Tia ran and hugged my mother, who was crying at that moment. She shouted through her tears, I have grandchildren, and hugged Tia back. Thus began our new life together. After receiving the death certificate, we applied for a marriage license. We went to a local judge to get married. My mom and dad were our witnesses, and Tia and Mia watched. I now pronounce you husband and wife. You can kiss the bride. I did it, and everyone, including me, cried. We went on a short honeymoon, and Mom and Dad looked after the kids. When we returned, we sat down and decided what to do with the money. We never told anyone about the money except Mom and Dad, but we never told them exactly how much. We told them we were going to give them $20,000 a year to save for Tia and Mia. We also gave them $10,000 for ourselves. We told them that we had received an inheritance from Esau. I knew that my parents understood this, but I did not interfere. They had no idea how much money was involved. We told them if they needed to tell us anything. Dad said, Son, be careful and don't be greedy. I told my father, Thank you, I will follow your advice. We haven't changed our lifestyle much. We kept our old car, and I went to work every day with a family I loved coming home to. We bought new things, but nothing expensive. There was nothing unusual about our expenses. Every year we put aside $5,000 for the education of our children. We probably spent another 10,000 a year on things for the house. We always bought on credit and made payments. We bought Tia a computer, and she was very happy. We asked little Mia if she wanted anything special, and she said, a puppy. We took her to an animal shelter and let her choose her best friend. It was so nice to see tears in Mia's eyes when her new friend licked her face. Kai was as happy as a lark as she sang while preparing dinner. As we sat down, Kai told us she had a surprise for us. Mia asked if it was apple pie, but Kai laughed. No, honey, you're going to have a little brother. Tia smiled and was happy for her mother. She said she always wanted to be part of a big family. She got her wish. Over the next few years, she had 2 more brothers and another younger sister. We had 6 children in total. Kai and I were very happy. We had to dig a little deeper into our underground savings, but that wasn't a problem. They could last a lifetime if spent correctly. All of our children were special to us and to each other. Tia, the oldest, received a full scholarship in computer programming. She also took the test along with her mother and became a US citizen. One evening, I was sitting with Kai after all the children had been put to bed. She looked at me and just smiled. There was a special connection between us that could not be broken. She stood up and unbuttoned her robe. Underneath were the same red doll pajamas we bought years ago. She may have gained a few pounds, I really don't know. I got up, we went to the bedroom and made love, just like the first time. Number 7, time will show. I thought, all this happened to me because I decided to help a friend. Life wasn't just good, it was great. Subscribe to our channel so that your love doesn't cheat on you, and go ahead and listen to the next story, because this story is nothing compared to the next one. If you're under 18, don't even think, click to the next one. Click to the next one. Click to the next